This video is going to show you how to put your lining into your bomber jacket. So hopefully you've completed all the sections of your bomber jacket lining, and you've got the front of the lining facing the front of your bomber jacket, and that the inside sleeve seam here is going to match up precisely with the inside seam of your jacket. So you hopefully have already attached the cuffs here at the wrists from the lining to the jacket. Now we need to pin the rest of the jacket around in place. The easiest way I find of doing that is to take your lining, pass it over the mannequin and down the other side. Now, because we don't want the sleeves to twist, you just need to flip it around so those are not now twisted. So keep going, there we go. So we've got the inside seams now, and they're all nicely not twisted. Now I can attach, starting at the mid section marking for the back, I'm going to pin that in place. So now we know it's all there, we can continue to pin that all around. So now I'm going to take my side seams, and I want those to match up in there, so that those 2 points are in the correct place. Now you will find that because you're pinning onto the hem edge, and this is a rib, there's quite a lot of give there, so you will need to just kind of pull it gently, just to make sure that it is all matching up nicely. So there's a lot of easing of the lining fabric to the jacket as you go. So once you've got a few establishing pins there, so you know where they are, I'm going to carry on going around to the front, and hopefully you can see that that is then going to match all the way to the end of that rib. So again, we need to pull that, and you need to make sure that corner is going to be lining up with the corner where the rib is attached to the facing at the front. So easing that fabric the whole time, so you can get your pins in, so you know that they are going to match up nicely. Now we do need to then pivot this edge to the facing edge, like so. So you're going to have to pivot it at that point, and then just have it starting to go up. So effectively, it is the right side of the lining that is attaching to the right side of the facing. Now, because this is actually now going to be quite tricky to carry on doing this, with it actually on the mannequin, the easiest thing now is to just slip that off the mannequin, and then you can carry on your lap, which will make it a lot easier. So I'm now going to just move the camera slightly so you've got a better view of what I'm doing. Okay, so hopefully that is fine. Now, so as you see, I've got my lining going up the front of my facing. Try and make sure you are matching your notches as you go, because as I say, there will be quite a lot of easing of the fabric into each other. So then your next marking should be there. So again, just pop your pin in. And as that's, you can see there's a little bit of ease that needs to happen there. So you're going to pull quite hard on the underneath fabric of the facing so that I can ease in the amount of fabric from the lining. Okay? So if you find that that is difficult, you can just snip the edge of your facing just a little bit to help with that easing process. Now I'm going to match up the top shoulder seam with the shoulder seam of the facing. So I'll pop my pin in there so I know those are together. And again, as you see, that will just need a little bit of easing so that those two edges will match. Now on your lining, at the back, at the top, you had markings to make a little pleat, and that's to help with the ease of the lining on the inside of the jacket. So just establish the fold of that pleat, and then I'm going to make sure that I'm matching up the middle of my back of my facing to the middle of the back, and then you're just going to pin so that that pleat hopefully will then sew in nicely there. And again, as you can see, there's quite a lot there to kind of get in, so again you will be easing that fabric as you go to make that fit. So we're just going to continue around the jacket. So you've got that next two seams that you want to meet up, make sure they're nice and flat. And again, those two edges will need to be eased in so that they fit nicely when you sew them. So I'm now going to go down the other side of the jacket. So again, I'm matching my markings so that I know that that's going to be in the right position. And then again, where there's excess, you're going to need to ease that into the facing once you start sewing. And so we're going back down now. So we have another marking there that we meet, so we know that's correct. And again, that will all need to be eased in nicely so that will fit. So when you get down to the bottom, so where the facing and the hem meet, so that corner, you need to make sure that is down there because that you will pivot so that you can get that attached. And again, just making sure that would all fit nicely down the front there. So again, as I say, that is now going to pivot. So tuck that underneath, and you want the rib kind of tucked underneath as well. I'm going to line up the two side seams like I did before. That will help me to make sure I'm in the right place. And then I will go back and pull, as I pull the ribbing, so then that will allow that amount of fabric to go into the right place. And finally, I'm just going to carry on pinning just a little bit further past that side seam. So there's the middle of my back, but I'm probably going to start sort of about there-ish, I think, with the sewing. So then you should see, so that's where my pin was to start at the back there. That's the centre back. So I'm going to take that one out now, and that will be the gap that we will leave after we've sewn it all in, and then we can pull the jacket through that, and hopefully that will work. So now we can pop our garment into our machine. Okay, now we're ready to sew. We've got our fabric under our pressure foot. We're using a 1 centimetre seam allowance. I'm going to turn my machine on, and off we go. So I'm just going backwards and forwards initially just to seal those stitches. So just take your time, don't go too fast. You'll find you're kind of pulling on your fabric a little bit just to keep everything in line. Always just double check everything's lining up nicely. So if that should happen, all I do is lift my pressure foot and I can come and carry on. So I'm coming towards the end of the rib section now, and that's where we'll need to pivot. So you can see, you just need to make sure everything's out of the way underneath. So I'm just going to try and make sure I stop sewing about where my finger is. Obviously don't go over your finger. I'm just slowing down now. So I'm making sure my needle is in my work. I'm going to lift my pressure foot. Now I've got to rotate and pivot that. And I'm just making sure that everything underneath is flat and out of the way. Otherwise you'll end up with it all being a bit bulky and weird, and you don't want that. So once you're happy, then you can turn and carry on with your sewing. So again, trying to keep on that 1 centimetre seam allowance line. So you're kind of feeding your fabric through your armholes as you're sewing. So don't get too confused about where that's all sitting. Again, I'm just making sure I've got access to everything. So again, when it all starts to just bunch up a little bit, just make sure you're trying to keep everything in line so that it's all going to meet up. I'm always double checking all the time that underneath my fabric is flat, because sometimes things can happen under there that you don't know what's going on. And if there's a bit that's not quite right, lift your pressure foot up, realign it, and then you can carry on. This is the point where I've come to my pleat. I need to make sure that that's all going to fall in there nicely. Again, something gets all puckered, just lift the pressure foot, align it nicely, and it should be fine. As you can see, I'm still pulling my jacket through the arms. Just coming back down the other side of the facing now. This is that corner we've got to pivot at again. So I'm going to make sure I know that I'm going to stop just before I get there. There's nothing underneath that's going to get caught. Make sure your needle's in so you can then pivot. And again, a little bit of tweaking underneath. making sure everything is lying flat and not in the wrong place. So we're nearly towards the end where we're going to finish. So this is the side seam. I'm going to go another sort of 5 centimetres or so along towards the centre back. I'm sort of going to finish about there, backwards and forwards, to seal that off. Make sure your needle is out of the work. Turn the machine off, snip your threads. So you should have that gap where we're going to pull the garment through, and that is all now all sewn together all the way round. Okay, so literally you get the gap, put your arms through, pull through the jacket, so it's all going to come now to the right side, so just pulling it through that gap like so, and then once that's all through, to get your arms through, you literally put your arm in the armhole down as far as the wrist, and then you just pull that through and the lining will be on the inside. So there you have it, there's your jacket lining. So again, pull through that other sleeve, grab hold of the wrist, bring it through, like so. There we go. Whoops. So, as you can see, it's all there, all lined up. And then the last thing you will do is turn under your hem, pin that, and you can hand sew that in place to finish off. And there's your jacket nicely lined. Okay, I hope that helped with putting your lining in.